What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Weekly. We are up to week 13 in the league. We are getting over our Thanksgiving food comas and, maybe some football comas as well. Of course, when I say we, I mean myself and my friend and co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. Here we are. It's we're closing up on the end of November, my friend. Who'd have thought we're 13 weeks into the NFL season. We can actually start talking playoffs. Now, we can't talk sanity because there's still some crazy things happening in the league. But wow, where has the time gone? Where has it gone? High school football's wrapping up in Southern California. State playoffs are starting. And my goodness, I just, boggles the mind how quickly it goes.
It really does, especially, one game a week, essentially, at least for, your own team. And then even with the spread outlook, the Thursday night games, off the top of my head, I can't think of a single one that was memorable. Even a lot of the primetime games have been less than memorable. But at the same time, we're 12 weeks in. And as you said, the craziness kind of continues. The NFC South by itself I feel like it's just, that's the kids' table of the NFL. Or, if you're in that situation, just because it seemed like everything was lining up for the Saints to take control, and they could not get the job done in a very weird game. I believe they had over 400 yards of total offense. It was unbelievable. Seemed to find ways to lose left and right, but a lot of other things as well. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts? Week 12, the Thanksgiving week. Your thoughts on everything?
Well, I think I'm just going to go with a couple items here, a high and a low. The high being, and maybe the word of the week for me, is stealth. Quietly and unassumingly, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wow, have they put together a season? Lawrence, I think, threw for, some ungodly amount of yards last week, and just week in and week out, these guys are going out there doing the job and not so much under the radar. They're just consistent. They are playing consistent. They're playing good ball. Watch these guys. I mean, you're looking at Kansas City, who struggles week in and week out. If not for being scheduled against the Raiders, who knows where they would have been sitting this week? They might have taken another loss scheduled against the right team. But now you're looking at Baltimore and Jacksonville. That's really something. But then on the opposite side of the coin, when was the last time in your memory you can say, after 12 weeks of the season or 11 weeks of the season, that the New England Patriots would be the worst team in the AFC? They're averaging 13 points a game. They are giving up an average of 23 points a game, and they are 1-5 at home. I'd like your thoughts on that one.
It's interesting you say that, because I've been watching football, pretty much my entire life now. Early on, it was kind of focused on, the Chargers or, even the Cowboys, because that was kind of the team of the 90s, Dion, Aikman, and all that, before I really, wanted to be a diehard. It was just about that. And the first kind of memory I have of the Patriots was actually them. It was either 95 or 96 in the Super Bowl against the Packers. Now, they lost that game, but it was Drew Bledsoe, and I don't know if Curtis Martin was on that team, but, that it was around that time. And that was my first memory of them. And really, ever since then, it's been Tom Brady and essentially Belichick. It's headline news if this team loses 5 games in a season. They're about to double that. They're probably going to have the worst record in the AFC,
Yeah.
which is unbelievable. We are almost certainly, I mean, maybe one of the more foregone conclusion that this is either going to be I would assume it will be an amicable break. I don't think there's going to come out that Robert Kraft has fired Bill Belichick.
Right.
I'm almost positive it will be a mutual decision to part ways on that side of it. And you can kind of where he goes from there, that's for another day. But it's odd to see that jersey, that uniform, be at the very, very bottom of the standings. And I'll be honest, as I said to a coworker, she is a fantastic lady. She's quite a bit older than me, but she's a very sweet lady. And I've told her, I was like, Debbie, I don't think you can be a real diehard sports fan because you are too nice of a person. Because a lot of what being a sports fan is reveling in the misery of your opponents and and the others. And for the last 20, 25 years, that's what the Patriots did to us. And I'm just so glad that, we got through it. We got through the 20 years of Brady and Belichick that we can say, now let's point at the Patriots. Now, the hard part and the frustrating part of this is, what if somehow, some way this team ends up with Drake May or Caleb Williams and all of a sudden, or whoever, they just end up with a really good quarterback. And it's like they go, okay, well, that was a crazy 2 years. We'll be back to, and I don't think they'll ever be back to that level, but being back to a playoff team, obviously it looks like they're going to have to do it without Belichick. But it's I like it. I enjoy it. And I think most Patriots fans that I either interact with or have seen post, they understand what's going on. They understand that it's time. It's time for them to be the ones to kind of be the bug on the windshield. They were the windshield for a very long time. It's time for them to be the bug. And I'm all here for it. But it's
the fans have a long road ahead of them.
Oh,
they really do, because I can't imagine there's going to be an immediate turnaround of any kind. Doesn't matter who they draft, who they pick up, what kind of trades they can make happen, and whoever they might bring in to replace Coach Belichick. They've got quite a rebuilding project facing them, and it's going to get ugly.
And no matter what you think of Belichick right now, I don't think there's more than 5 coaches that I would be like, oh yeah, I want them before Belichick. And you're right. They're not a quarterback away. I think there are a certain team. I think the Jets are a quarterback away. And certain teams are a quarterback away. The Patriots are not. I think I brought this up to my brother on Thanksgiving, that the Patriots and the Belichick way works only when you're winning. The no days off, the I'm going to be on you 24/7. That's working when you're 12-4, 13-3, competing for championships. It doesn't work when you're 2-9. Last place in a very, very bad division. But my thoughts, unless you had anything else there, Raider Jim?
No.
So my thoughts, first and foremost, I'm going to start at the top. And yes, I'm biased. But you know what? We're 13 weeks into this, and I've been pretty calm. But folks, the Philadelphia Eagles, this is borderline insanity right now. To see the way this team almost week in and week out can play so badly for 3 quarters and still win games against some of the best teams in football. And look, yeah, I know Buffalo's 6-6, but if Buffalo plays like they did on Sunday, if they were able to bottle that and drink that, they're 13-3. That was as perfect a game as they could have played, at least offensively. Sean McDermott probably needs to figure out how not to play a prevent defense with under 2 minutes left in the game, but I'm okay with all of that. But the one thing I do really, really want to focus on, I think we're all lost. And look, Jalen Hurts, the stats are unbelievable. I think he is the MVP right now, definitely still up for debate. But he is now 14-0 in his last 14 games against teams with winning records. In the last 8 games that he's been down by 10 points or more, he has won every single one of them. Like, take a moment and think about that. Incredible. Jason Kelce had a rough, I didn't agree with all the false starts, but that is what it is. But his block on the game-winning quarterback draw, my goodness, there are not too many centers, let alone 36-year-old centers, that can do what he does. Finally, though, there's one person that I don't think is getting enough credit, and it's Jake the Make Elliott. That was the only reason I will say the second toughest field goal I've ever seen made was because, apologies, Raider Jim, I'm bringing it up, but it was the Tuck Rule game with Vinatieri's 45-yarder in a driving snowstorm to send that game to overtime. That was 45 yards now in an AFC championship game. So I'm going to give him the extra bit for that. But Jake Elliott hitting a 59-yard field goal in a driving rainstorm. That ball was, I mean, Tim Wakefield would be jealous of that knuckleball. It was incredible to see. I didn't even know it went in. I couldn't even see the ball. That's how crazy it was. We are in a different light if we don't have Jake Elliott. I'll tell you that right now. Jalen gets all the credit. Jason gets all the credit. That great, but Jake needs some as well. Two other things I do want to bring up. First and foremost, we kind of touched a little bit on it, Raider Jim, before we hit record. The quality of football is not good right now, and I'm being incredibly diplomatic. It's rough, and I think one of the biggest things, I think it comes down to two things. I think the main thing is the quarterback injuries. Obviously, look, when you lose guys like Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, not a fan, but Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, guys like that, the quality is going to drop. However, I think the big question for me is, when did teams neglect to either scout or develop offensive line play? Because I think that's the problem. I think we are seeing some really, really bad offensive line play. There isn't an offensive line that jumps out to me. Even the Eagles or the Niners, they still have their issues. And maybe it was just because I felt like I probably watched 40 hours of football this weekend between college and the NFL. And I preferred, I mean, the college game that Saturday was bananas. Michigan, Ohio State, fantastic. Alabama, Auburn was, that was one of the few times I've actually screamed out loud watching a football game, watching that play. And then we see the NFL on the other side. So I don't know. I think that's something that does need to be talked about. Peter King used to say, and I'm sure he still does, but he said the most important position on a football team is a quarterback. The second most important position on a football team is the backup quarterback. And I think certain teams maybe need to not rely on undrafted free agents, undrafted rookie free agents to possibly carry them to a playoff berth. Maybe a Marcus Mariota or something like that would be a better option than a Tommy DeVito, who has actually been very good. He was just the first one who popped into my mind. And then finally, the coaching situation we're seeing going on around the league. Frank Reich was screwed. Let's be honest. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that he's going to make a lot of money over the next 3 years for doing nothing, or at least not coaching the Panthers and I think the Colts as well, but he was screwed by David Tepper. From a lot of what we've been hearing is David Tepper overruled quarterbacks coach Josh McCown and head coach Frank Reich. They wanted CJ Stroud. David Tepper said, no, we're going to do Bryce Young. Now, I think Bryce Young has the opportunity to be good, and I don't think CJ Stroud would be as good on the Panthers, but I think they would be in a better position. And I think David Tepper is going to learn really quickly that you can't come in from a business side and do the same things and expect to win championships. It just doesn't work like that in sports ownership. And then the other one, he hasn't been fired, but there's a lot of talk about it. Robert Saleh. Look, this is a guy, he's not in charge of player development or acquisition or all that stuff. That's Joe Douglas. They've been very vocal that Joe Douglas is responsible for bringing guys in. The Jets, for better or worse, and we know it's gone for worse, put their entire stock on the Aaron Rodgers stock. And that's a volatile stock. I would have told you that in August. And they're here now. There were a lot of talk that Joe Douglas told Robert Saleh that, no, we are going to stick with Zach Wilson. We are going to stick with Zach Wilson. We're not going to go get Josh Dobbs or this or that. And he kept going. You know, I'm the head coach. I'll do it the best I can. And now for people to say he's essentially gonna be fired, I think that's a huge mistake. And I just think sometimes you need to have a little bit of self-awareness if you're on the Jets side. Look, you put it all on Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, you put it all on Aaron Rodgers, and it literally fell apart third play of the season.
Yep.
you know. So I don't know. I'd be really really sad to see Robert Saleh not on the sideline. I think he's a really good coach, or at least I know he's a really good defensive coach. I don't know about as a head coach, but at the same time, I don't think we've seen enough to prove that he's a bad head coach.
I will say
For the
one of the
Chiefs.
aspects of the game that I haven't liked it since the inception of it, and that is the let's go up to the coaches and talk to them at halftime on the sidelines. It's just the NFL has got to back off on what they're requiring. If you paid attention during the season, I've noticed that every team now, I guess it's a requirement. When it's a third down, you play Hell's Bells. You play the bell gongs from
That,
Hell's
you
Bells.
know, that's been going on for so long. And as a San Diegan who grew up, there is only one time to play that song. It's when Trevor Hoffman is about to
And
enter
it's
the
gone.
game.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, it is the most bastardized song and they don't even play the song. They just play the bells. Like, go find your own bells. I'm sorry, you got me. Yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
that's
No,
okay. That's
thank you.
okay. But the Jets pulled that let's throw a Hail Mary before halftime, and it gets returned 99 yards. And the reporter actually ran up to Salah and asked him, "So what'd you think?" Da 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 da. They laid it out like he didn't see the play happen. And son of a gun, his response was as simple as, "Well, that was unfortunate," and he
Yeah,
just kept going. I thought that was fantastic. What are these guys supposed to say?
yeah.
Good
Well,
run
and
back?
I don't even like the after the game stuff. I'll be
No,
honest. I
leave
don't
them
need to hear
alone.
it after. I don't care. Nothing changes. I don't need to hear about the injury report. I don't need to hear about this because a lot of times the head coaches, they didn't see it. They didn't, whatever question you have, they have probably one of the worst views. That's why the coordinators are usually up in the box. So a lot of times you'll hear coaches say, and of course reporters will scoff at this, but they'll say, I have to see it on film or I have to watch the film on it because they call the play and they see it in front of them, but they don't know what the left guard did or why there was a holding there or this or that. So I've never been a fan, like I said, of that. I can't stand in baseball where they do it in the middle of the game as
Oh
well.
yeah.
And they're talking to the players, and it was in the All-Star game, and there was a pitcher who was talking, and we'll get to the game picks here in a minute. We did get on a bit of a tangent, but and they were talking to him, and he starts to get shelled. And well, guess what happens? Then it's just awkward silence because the announcer doesn't want to call the game because if he calls the game, he's reminding the pitcher that he's given up 4 runs, and he doesn't want to ask him a question. And I don't know, I can't stand it, and I understand I'm probably at least on the baseball side in the minority, but I've never liked the halftime interviews. I don't think
Not at
anything
all.
matters at that point. Nothing Ed Werder is not going to get anything out that is going to change anything for the game, the way we watch it, period.
And
Halftime should be about going to the bus.
if you go to a football game, professional game, and you are in the first 6 rows on the lower level of any field behind a team bench, you don't see anything except the
The
backs of
worst.
the guys.
Yeah. I went to one game. It was the busiest I've ever seen Qualcomm or whatever it was Qualcomm at the time. It was San Diego State boys versus Boise State. SDSU was undefeated. Boise State came in. I got tickets late. We got like the 5th row on the Boise State side. Worst game I've ever been to. Because the Aztecs got demolished, but I didn't know what was going on. The only reason I knew what was going on is because I saw the Boise State players celebrating. But anyways, yeah, don't not top 10. Find yourself. Look, I'm a big fan of the nosebleeds in any sporting event.
There you go.
It's probably the people that I want to be around. Anyways, so, but yeah, after no further ado, we are going to move on to the game picks. We have 8 picks here for you. A lot of teams on buys this week. This is the final big buy week of the season. Next week, 2 teams are on buys. I think Miami and another team, but don't quote me on it. But we have Baltimore, Buffalo, Chicago, Vegas, Minnesota, and the Giants. All 3 of those teams, of course, on buys. Raider Jim, do you want to talk about last week? Because normally you kind of talk about the Raiders when you talk about the game, but we aren't going to be talking about the Raiders game this week. Do you want to talk about the Chiefs Raiders game? It's up to you.
Chiefs Raiders game. All I can really say about that one is the Raiders did not even beat the spread, and the spread was I think they were 9-point underdogs going into it. They get out to a 14-point lead. They can't hold it. They can't seal the deal. That was a problem with John Gruden, and even after Gruden is, you got to learn to have that killer instinct. When you jump out to a lead like that, you better not only be able to hold on to it, you got to have that ability to go out and then just lay it on the other team, make it so they can't get up off the mat, if you will. And I don't wish ill will or anything bad to happen to the opponents. I'm just saying, run up the points, get those points, make it comfortable, hold the lead, give your offense some time. They could not do any of that. The Raiders did let go. I think his first name was Marcus Peters, number 24. Yeah. If you recall, about 5 weeks ago, I went on a 3-week run of saying that guy's got to get out of there because he cannot play defensive back. He might be the greatest guy in the world. He is not a defensive back. And why it took them this long to figure it out is beyond me. But yeah, they did part ways with him. Raiders, again, they're going to have however many games left, 6-7 games left, something like that, to prove themselves. If they do 500 for the rest of the season, if they split it 3-3, it's going to be quite an accomplishment. But I will tell you what, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough road there for the Raiders, especially after last week, 14 points up. But even I think, like I said, at 14-0, I don't think there were a whole lot of people thinking that score was going to hold.
Right.
But yeah, tough one there. But moving on to week 13. Of course, we are going to start, as always, chronologically with the Thursday night matchup. This is going to be maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. This would have been a very intriguing matchup. I still am a little intrigued by this. It's going to be the Seattle Seahawks at 6-5. They're heading to the Lone Star State. They will face the Dallas Cowboys, who are 8-3. Cowboys are 9-point favorites. The over-under sits at 46. Of course, as I said, this game will be on Thursday Night Football. Cowboys have yet to beat a team with a winning record. So if they do get the win here, this will be the first time. I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's with a winning record when they beat them or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But this will be their best win of the season should they get it. I think they do. Dallas is a different animal at home. They have been dominant. They are outscoring their opponents. It's like an average of like 41-10 in that range, which is crazy. Seattle is a team that is on the ropes for sure. They're going to look back on this season. 2 games will jump out to them, but both of their games against the Rams, and most notably the one 2 weeks ago, that was a game they let get away. And even if you just take one of those, you're 7-4. But at this point, it's 6-5, staring down the Cowboys at home. I don't think Seattle wins this game. And now you're 6-6. They're starting to tumble. In terms of the spread, though, look, the Cowboys have beaten up on some really, really bad teams. I think Seattle is above average at best. 9 points is a lot on a Thursday night, short week. I'm going to buy a half a point. I'm going to take Seattle plus 9.5. However, in terms of the over-under, the only way that Seattle covers this is if we stay under the 46. I'm looking for a 21-13 type game. Get us to, 34, maybe 24-17 if we really want to make Brandon stress it out. But I think this stays under the 46. It's the only way Seattle covers, unless Dallas's defense just completely shuts down the Seahawks offense, which is a possibility. But I still like the under and Seattle plus 9.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Seahawks at Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the schedulers for the NFL line them up and they think they're going to have great holiday games, great Monday night games, and they don't always pan out. And sometimes it's just luck of the draw. You don't know what's going to happen. I think this is a 2-week span for the Seahawks where it wasn't intentional, but guess what? You're going to play the 49ers, and then you're going to come back and you're going to play Dallas. Well, the 49ers went into Seattle, really took care of business against the Seahawks last week. They got 1 touchdown. The Seahawks got 1 touchdown in the third quarter. Other than that, they luckily they had a field goal kicker who got them a couple points, but they lost 31-13. that's nothing to write home about. And that kind of speaks to who the Seahawks are. And they do put it together. They're one of those inconsistent teams we've talked about week in and week out. Dallas, on the other hand, is starting to play Dallas Cowboy football. Like you say, put them at home, and they're just nobody's going to come into our yard and do that to us. It's happened a couple times. They've had a couple, not the best games, but still at 8-3. Now we're going to start taking serious looks at the playoffs. Dallas wants to cushion that lead. Dallas wants to jockey for that number one seed position, get to stay at home through the playoffs as long as they can stay in there. -9, I think they definitely cover. I think their defense is going to take it to the Seahawks. And I think offensively, they're going to be able to, if Purdy and the 49ers can put up 31, there's no way that the Cowboys can't put up 35, 39, or excuse me, 35, 38, 42 points. So I do like the Cowboys to cover. I'll take a half point the other way, call it 8.5. And the over-under at 46, I'll go over 45.5 just because I think Dallas is going to roll it up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting there. Moving on to what I think is possibly the most important game of the season, at least in the NFC, at least in the regular season. It is the San Francisco 49ers at 8-3. I can't believe I'm saying this, but San Francisco 49ers at 8-3 are going to go to Philadelphia as 3-point favorites. The over-under is 46.5. The Philadelphia Eagles are 10-1, haven't lost to an NFC opponent this year, coming off a dominant win over this team last year in the championship game. Obviously, I understand was under some interesting circumstances where you pretty much played the second half without a quarterback. I get that. But my question, I mean, I guess I understand the thought process, but the disrespect that the Philadelphia Eagles are getting from Vegas right here. Nick Sirianni might not be the most likable coach in the world, but that's okay because it's kind of how us Philly fans are. We're definitely not the most likable. This is bulletin board material for him. That if this was in San Francisco, I could see it. But you're telling me not only you think the San Francisco 49ers are going to go to Philadelphia, be 3-point favorites, but what that tells me is actually on a neutral site is the Niners are closer to a touchdown favorite because we all know there's a default 3 points for home field. Eagles get that, but obviously not enough. So there's still extra 3. I am bewildered by this. I'm not going to bet on this game, but if I would tell you, I mean, you got to take the 10-1 team and the points at home. This is the most it's there for you, which also scares me. On the overall side of this game, obviously as an Eagle fan, this is kind of the fork in the road. A win and the rest of the season's cake. We get the 1 seed. It's probably not clinched, but we have the tie break and a 3-game lead on San Francisco. That's it. If they lose, now you only have essentially a half-game lead next week going up against Dallas and then Seattle after that. So this is a big one, obviously, for both teams. I think the Eagles win this game. Until the Eagles prove anything different, I think this team, they can win pretty, they can win ugly, they can win disgusting. It doesn't matter. They just win. So Philadelphia, I would say, once again, I'm not betting on this, but if I were to tell you, take the money line. If you want to take the 3 points, you can do that by a half a point, plus 3.5. That's fine. I do think this game stays under. I think this is going to be a game both offenses fully expect to meet in 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So we're not going to see anything crazy. We're not going to see anything put terribly on film because, like I said, both of these teams are under the assumption that in late January, it will be this same exact matchup. So I like the under. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Niners surprising favorites on the road in Philly.
Yeah, I thought it was one of those things where maybe something got put in the wrong column. I had to go back and check myself because I, like you, I was like, you got to be kidding me. They've lost 1 game. They're at home, and you give nothing against the 49ers. They didn't handicap this game. But even now, you still go to it's a slight adjustment, but at Vegas Insider, if you go, they're still the 2.5 point favorite. They, the 49ers. And the over under has gone up to 47.5,
Wow.
which just boggles the mind. So that being said, and having seen these two teams, play throughout the season, now San Francisco, Brock Purdy is not always the most consistent guy out there. He's also going to face some weather this weekend because there's a 53% chance of showers in Philadelphia, and that's going to affect everything. Also, did they miss what you talked about earlier, which they, the handicappers, with the foot they got on the Eagles side of the ball, and you're going to give them a 2.5 to 3 point cushion? That's just silly. So, all things being equal, hats off to the 49er defense. Brock Purdy, he's a great guy. But man, those Eagles at home, tough, tough, tough. Eagles are going to cover this one. I'm with you. I'll just go ahead and take the money line on this one, even if it comes down to the last minute victory, the last minute field goal. I like the Eagles, and I definitely at 47.5 at Vegas Insider, I'm going under all night long on this one.
Yeah, this seems a bit like like I said, a trap. Like you're looking around going, wait, am I going to get shocked when I touch this $100 bill, or am I on candid camera or something right now? But I guess the only thing that might jump out, and it's still that would make sense now. Lane Johnson did miss last week. Just kind of, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but Lane Johnson is not someone you normally see missing football games, especially sneaking up on you. So who knows? Maybe that was it. Everything does seem that he is going to play. I know Dallas Goedert apparently is pushing really hard, and I think that is the missing piece to this offense. Once they can get Dallas Goedert back, work back into this, he is such a huge part of this offense. One of really more underrated tight ends. I think that might still. I don't think that's smart. To bring Dallas Goedert back. It was a fractured forearm. I was thinking about that the other day. He's been out. If he comes back, he will have been out 3 weeks for a fractured forearm. I don't know if I would podcast for 2 years if I fractured my forearm. And all I do is press a button. So I don't know. I was thinking about that the other day, like how unbelievable these players are. And we're over here going, oh, God, it's going to take you 6 weeks to get back from a broken back. Come on, rub some dirt on it. But no, it's incredible, but definitely something to keep an eye on. I don't know. I don't understand the spread, but once again, I think you should go out and take advantage of the fact that I think Vegas got this one wrong. And you did kind of already bring it up, but this is more than likely going to be the best chance of rain. As you said, 51%. It does look like Green Bay and Kansas City at night will be cold. But I think I saw 13% chance of precipitation. We'll get to that game in a moment. But moving on, sticking in the NFC East, it's going to be the Miami Dolphins. They are 8-3, and they are heading into Washington as 9.5-point favorites. The over/under is 50. The Commanders are 4-8. Look, Miami obviously is a team. We saw them. They got off to a little bit of a slow start against the Jets, but I also felt like they knew that they probably didn't need to get out of third gear to win that game. So it's kind of just like, let's go and play. And then the Hail Mary, or the Hail Mary, if you will, went their way. I like Miami to cover here. I think Washington, this is a team everyone is pulling in the same direction, but unfortunately it's in the direction of we don't give a bleep. I think Ron Rivera knows his time is up. He's just kind of looking around, waiting to either get the axe or keep doing what he's going to do. I think the defense is atrocious. It's just not good. I like Miami to cover here. Cover the 9.5. I think they win by double digits. Easy. Not really a home field advantage to be talked about. I think we go over here as well. Washington defense, not really good. Miami's defense, not anything. I could see Sam Howell dropping 21. And that will very easily get us there, because I think we get easily 38 to 41 points out of Miami. At that point, we only need, 10, 13 points out of Washington and we hit the over. But I like Miami to cover the 9.5. Big spread, but I like it. And then the over 50, another big number. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Washington has been that inconsistent team as far as my picks go because one minute I pick them and 1 week I pick them and they absolutely fall flat. The next week I figure they're going to get blown out and they run up, they run up enough points to really blow the over under for me. Miami's just playing good, consistent football right now. They're just good. They're playing good offensively. Defensively, they do enough to keep their offense in the game. Do they cover 9.5 against a Redskin team? Yes, they do. I don't see any issues with that. And Washington, 3 out of 4 quarters last week against the Cowboys, they did not score. They ran up 10 points in the second quarter. They were shut out in the first quarter and did not score in the second half. And because of that, I don't think they're going to have much more success, although I can't say it's an equal comparison to compare the Dolphin off defense to the Cowboys defense. But I don't think Washington, because there is enough chance that it might actually rain during game time. That being said, I see under 50 on this one.
Yeah, that weather could definitely with the 50 year. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but if you're not feeling good at the end of the first quarter on an over 50, you should probably just turn the game off.
Yeah.
Especially these days in the NFL because it seems like a lot of the scoring's coming early. So yeah, you're probably going to be chasing early on that one. But moving on to the AFC West side of things, it is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 8-3. They're going to be 6.5-point favorites as they head to Green Bay. Big win on Thanksgiving for the Packers to get them to 5-6. This will be Sunday Night Football. The over/under is 42. The AFC West is your jurisdiction, Raider Jim. So I'll let you get us started. Chiefs at Packers.
Yeah, and it is going to be a 24% chance of rain. And again, this is where the Southern California boy didn't pay enough attention during science class because 24% chance of rain. And yet, if it rains, it's only going to rain. It's not going to snow, even though it's going to be 32 degrees at Lambeau Field. So somebody can explain that one to me later. And I will say one of my favorite things about this matchup is once again, we will get to see film clips from the original first World Championship of Football when the Chiefs took on Green Bay and lost that inaugural game. But always good to watch those old highlights. Kansas City at 8-3, they're playing pretty good on the offensive side of the ball. Let me tell you, that kid Pacheco ran and ran and ran like a madman the other night against the Raiders. And maybe not big clips at a time, but when he was handed the ball and hit that line, he had one speed, and he's hitting that at 100 miles an hour. The defense did enough. They came together after giving up a couple good drives to the Raiders at the early part of the game. They got everything in check. Mahomes is just Mahomes. But the Green Bay Packers did not score in the fourth quarter last week, and yet they beat the Detroit Lions, which was a really terrible loss for me to take because I had the Lions covering and winning on that one. But Green Bay, rolled up those 20 points in the first quarter and just never let go. Raiders could have taken a play out of that or a page out of that playbook. But this time, I think it's going to be a little different. I don't think they're going to have the success against the Chiefs like they did against the Lions. I don't think they're going to win this one, but covering the 6.5, give me a half point, give me Green Bay +7 on this one. And I would definitely go over 42 on this one. I think we'll see a few points scored.
I agree with you. First and foremost, I want to piggyback on any science people out there because not only do you need to explain that the 32 degrees, but it's raining thing to us. Someone needs to explain to me what a waxing gibbous moon is because everyone laughed at me last week for bringing that up. I put $10 on the I call it the waxing gibbous money line bet of the year, and it cashed. So, but no, I did fully expect to put in the effort and try to figure out what a waxing gibbous moon is, and then I realized, I have better things to do with my time. But in terms of this game, obviously the Chiefs, I like that you brought up the Super Bowl because that's what I always think about with Kansas City and Green Bay. It's just the colors. I don't know. And I give you 2-1 odds. They're going to show you a picture of the first, the Super Bowl, the ticket, and it's going to be what, a $1.25 admission, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to say, oh, now it's this, and do all that stuff. So that'll be interesting. I think Kansas City wins this game, but I'm with you. I buy that half point. Let's get it to 7. Green Bay does cover that. One interesting thing that I did see, Jordan Love, obviously, there've been a lot of talk about what to expect out of him or where he's going. He has pretty much the exact same numbers as Aaron Rodgers did in his first 12 starts. Aaron Rodgers had 52 more passing yards, and Jordan Love has 1 more interception. Other than that, the pass attempts pretty much the same, 406, 404. Both had 20 touchdowns passing, and both are 5-7 in their first 12 games. So I don't think it's time to panic on Jordan Love. I thought there were some throws that were really good, but like you said, I think there was still some meat on the bone. That game, they probably should have won by more. But I think for a Packers fan, you would have showed them this 4 weeks ago. It would have made them feel really good. Sunday Night Football as well. Look, Green Bay, that's a fantastic home field. You're not going to see a ton of Chiefs fans there just because it's hard to get tickets if you live in Green Bay, let alone if you're out of state or out of town. In terms of the over under, I'm going to take the under here. I just think we see 2 offenses. The Chiefs maybe have started to kind of maybe figure things out. Obviously, they finally scored in the second half. I didn't do the second half over bet, but I did do over 27.5 for a team total for the Chiefs. That cashed for me. I don't know if they get to 28 this one. I think Green Bay kind of grinds this game out, shrinks the game. Possessions come at a premium. We see a closer game. But I do like Green Bay to cover 7 and stay under 42. Moving on to a game that we have to talk about because it's an AFC West matchup. It's the Los Angeles Chargers at 4-7. They are going to be 6-point favorites as they head to New England. Yes, those Patriots who we talked about earlier at 2-9. They're going to be in this one. The over-under is 39.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Chargers head to Foxborough as 6-point favorites.
The Chargers are not a 6-point favorite because of how good they are. That again speaks to how poorly the New England Patriots are playing. Let me tell you, the Raiders, nobody expected the Raiders to go out and challenge for the AFC West. None of the professional prognosticators. Nobody expected them to challenge for a wild card. Nobody expected them to come in third. Most people expected them to be the cellar dwellers in the AFC West. The big disappointment in the AFC West, to me, are the LA Chargers, who for the last 3 seasons, it's been, oh my gosh, they got that new kid. They got that Herbert kid back there. And I really like that kid, but I've said it before during this season. You almost hate to see him going the same route as Phillip Rivers, who earlier this season, he was already being referred to as Phillip Rivers 2.0. And I hope either things turn around on the coaching level for the Chargers, or they get rid of that kid down, in a couple seasons and give him a chance to win. It doesn't always play out. Look at Derek Carr right now. But the Chargers, it took them until the 4th quarter to get into the end zone last week against Lamar Jackson and friends. And they scored 10 points. They scored a field goal first quarter, then they sat silent. By the time they scored that touchdown, it's 20-10. They ended up losing the game. But they are playing the Patriots this week. The Patriots don't have a good offense. They might make a play of it, score a couple times, get in the end zone a couple times. I think the Chargers will have a much better offensive game than they have the last few weeks. Slight chance of rain, 24% chance of rain. It's going to be cold. It's going to be damp. Do the Chargers cover 6 points? Yeah, they do. I wouldn't take a half point either way on this one. They'll cover the 6. They'll win by a full touchdown. 39.5. That's the one I'm having a problem with. Can the Chargers put up 24 points? And if they do, even if they do, what are the Patriots going to do? I think it's going to be an under all the way on this one. I wouldn't even mess around with a point, half a point either way on that either. So give me the Chargers to cover -6 and give me the under on that one. And it's too bad. Doesn't seem like that many years ago we'd be looking at this game saying, boy, it's going to be a barn burner and they're going to hit 60 points. It's too bad to see them.
Definitely. But the Chargers would not be 6-point favorites. Nobody
That's true.
would ever. Like, I mean, this is probably the 5th time that I've said this is the first time I've seen this for a line concerning the Patriots. But yeah, 6-point home underdogs, how the mighty have fallen. The Chargers, obviously, look, they don't get the breaks, obviously. They turn the ball over at an alarming rate over the last few weeks. And I think their defense actually, ironically, has gotten better. But now apparently Bosa is maybe dealing with some stuff, and he's just kind of a walking questionable.
He's always hurt.
There's always something going on with him, and everyone's always hurt. I understand that, but not everyone's always on the injury report and always being questioned. But unfortunately, he is. I agree. I think the Chargers, the only thing that holds me up here on this one, and it goes back to my days as an old San Diego Charger fan, is this is a internal clock 10 a.m. game for them. It's going to be cold, 46 degrees, although I feel like for the people of Foxborough, that's barbecuing weather in December. But that's the one thing that does hold me up. It's not enough for me to get off of the Chargers on this one. I do like the Chargers to cover 6 here. They probably win by a touchdown or more. The only reason I would say over for this one has nothing to do with the Patriots offense. I could very well see, just like last week, we said we could very easily see the Chargers after the dump they laid against the Packers, them come out and play fantastic against the Ravens. That's just what the Chargers do. They're back and forth, blah, blah, blah. I would not be surprised to see the Chargers just drop 50 on the Patriots, just because it's like, we're better than this team. We're not good, but we're better than this team. And this might be the only chance we get to kind of flex our muscles for the rest of the year. So it's the only thing that holds me off of that. But once again, gun to my head, I will take the under 39.5 just because I don't know how New England carries the weight here. I mean, you could say the Chargers score 31 points and I still might take the under. It's that bad in New England. I think the Chargers and the under is a pretty safe bet. Moving on to a very intriguing, I'll tell you what, the beginning of the year, I don't think we would have expected this to be one of the more intriguing games of this week, but here we are. It is the Denver Broncos on an absolute tear. They have won 5 in a row. They are 6-5. They're heading to Houston, who is also doing very well. They are 6-5 as well. The Texans will be 3.5-point favorites. The over-under here sits at 47.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Denver heads to Houston.
Well, before we got started on making picks, one of the 2 items I talked about was Jacksonville Jaguars and how kind of in a stealth, unassuming way they have just suited up, gone out, taken care of business, come back in, take off their uniforms, take their showers, and go home. I got to say, I wrote the Broncos off way back. But you look now, if not for the fact the Raiders could not take care of business last week, they would be 1 game out of the lead against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. They're playing real good ball. They've got their stuff together. Now, on the other side of this game, you do have Houston and the hot shot C.J. Stroud. And what really just another implication in this game is Houston at 6-5 is sitting at 2nd place in their division. The next game we're going to talk about is going to feature the 6-5 Indianapolis Colts taking on Tennessee. So there's a lot of stuff in play, a lot of moving pieces in play in these next 2 games we're going to talk about. Houston, this is almost the must win if they want any chance to hang in there and maybe challenge for a wild card position. This is going to be it, because if the Colts take care of business against Tennessee, as they should, even though it's on the road, then Houston's going to have themselves a little bit deeper of a hole to dig out of. On the other side of that, same for Denver. Denver knows they're in a good position right now. They've got 6 games left, I believe it is. If they've got 6 games left and they can pull off a nice run, who knows? They may be looking at a wild card as well. But on the road, against Houston. Houston is the 3.5 point favorite, and I've got another comment about that. But at 3.5 points, I don't know that I would take the spread. I think I'll take Houston money line on this one. Over under at 47.5. I would take a half point, take it down to 47 even. But I think they're going to go over in this one. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. I wouldn't have said that 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, but this coming Sunday, I think definitely. But again, hats off to the Broncos. They are playing like they should have been playing all along.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see. I don't know. I guess everyone got their opportunity to kind of clown on Russell Wilson and Sean Payton and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think the league is better off when we have Russ. Like, we're watching some quarterbacks run around. It's nice to see Russell Wilson, kind of breath of fresh air, you know. And once again, he hasn't been peak Russell Wilson, but he's been a lot better than last year. He's been
Absolutely
a big reason why this team is where they are. Look, the spread's 3.5, so everyone knows what I'm doing, right? Taking Denver plus 3.5. I don't choose it. The spread shows it for me. What can I say? But no, this is a game I probably won't even bet. This is a game that I just want to watch because it's like somewhat looking in a mirror, and maybe I'm stretching here a little bit, but you got Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, two guys that have won their championships on one side. On the other side, you got D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, who may have that in their future going forward. So it is very interesting to kind of see the veteran taking on kind of the rookie in
Absolutely.
this. And I don't know. I'm just really excited for this one. Even last week when it was Houston and Jacksonville, you know, I'm not going to say Lawrence Stroud is going to be on the level of Manning Brady type rivalry, but I think it's going to have some context going forward. And I don't know how long Russell Wilson's going to be chucking it, but I like when Russell Wilson's good. I know he's corny. I know, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but I like the guy. There's a lot of athletes in this world that just aren't good people, and Russell Wilson is. And if that's your biggest problem you have with him, I'm okay with that. But yeah, on this side of things, I just think Denver comes in. They know how to win. And I think Houston might be a little bit like, not happy to be here, but maybe like, kind of like when you sneak into a party and you're like, just blend in. And you try to blend in so much, you actually blend out almost. I think that's kind of where we are here with Houston. And yeah, the over under, I like the over here, but that's also because it would be so much fun if this game turned into a shootout. We could see a 38-35 game that goes down to the wire between these two teams. Would absolutely love it. And with the extra playoff spot, this isn't necessarily an elimination game as well. So just something to keep in mind there. But moving on, Raider Jim already.
One more thing on that
Yes.
game, just because I want to try to wind you up.
Oh, here we go.
So you look at this game, you look at the spread, 2 6-5 teams. Houston is 6-5 with a rookie quarterback. They get the 3.5 point home favorite call, but your Eagles don't.
Yeah. I didn't think about that until right now when you said rile it up, and I said, how's he going to bring this? And then I'm looking over my sheet and I realize that pretty much every game that we're talking about, only Dallas and Houston are going to be favored at home. That's crazy. It just kind of dawned on me as well. But yeah, I saw where you were going with that before you took me there. And I understand. I think obviously there's more confidence in the Niners than the Broncos, even though it still doesn't make sense to me. Nope. And I think a lot of people look, CJ Stroud and the Texans, this isn't like we woke up 2 weeks ago and went, whoa, this team's good. This has been in the making for 6 weeks, I'd say. And I think Vegas has kind of been building for that. While, I don't know. I think this is an opportunity to make some money, watch Houston win by a field goal, us win the spread side of things, and really enjoy ourselves, because I think this has the opportunity to be a really, really fun game to watch. But what time is this game? Is this at?
That one's at Houston. Yeah.
So it's at Houston. Perfect. Okay, good. So that will be at least on my radar, because once the Eagles start, nothing is on my radar. So that will be good. We'll be able to keep my eye on that on the red zone side of things. Also, shout out Scott Hansen. I don't know if you're a red zone guy, but there was during with 10 minutes left in the Eagles Bills game. It was the only good game. Their studio had to evacuate, and he was like, "No, I'm not going anywhere. We got a show to finish."
Wow.
Yeah, so football guy right there. Shout out Scott Hansen. Probably the toughest job in all of sports, even though he only has to do it 8 hours a week. Very difficult to do what he does. But anyways, moving on to our second to last game, it is going to be the Indianapolis Colts at 6-5. They are heading to Tennessee, who is 4-7. The Colts are going to be 1-point favorites, so essentially a pick 'em. And the over under here is 42.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Colts at Titans in a interesting AFC South matchup.
Yeah, definitely not to the level where it's not apples to apples to say for the downfall of Tennessee and look at the downfall of the Patriots. But Tennessee, it wasn't that many seasons ago that within the last 2 or 3 where they were absolutely ruling the roost. And now look at them, 4-7, really struggling for an identity, trying to keep people healthy. They're going to have trouble at home against Indianapolis, who, like I said, only way Indianapolis stays in this one is to win this game, especially if Houston wins their game. And by the time we all sit down for dinner on Sunday, we're going to know how did both teams fare. I think Indianapolis comes in. I will take Indianapolis in the money line on this one for sure. 42.5. There is a slight chance of rain. It's like 28% chance. It doesn't say showers. It just says rain, the last report I saw. But 42.5, boy, that is one boring game, isn't it? But I still think, give me a half a point to make it 43. I think Indianapolis gets the win on the money line, and I think this will stay under 43 points.
Yeah, I think, look, Gardner Minshew deserves some respect. This is a guy who has been around for a little while. I think everyone probably wrote the Colts off after Anthony Richardson went down. Gardner Minshew hasn't been great. Hasn't, there have been times where you went, uh-oh. But I think he is a winning Jameis Winston. And what I mean is Jameis has such high peaks and low valleys. It's almost like you just can't do it. It's an NFL franchise. Gardner Minshew is that perfect balance of the peaks and valleys, because there are going to be a lot of really high highs, but yeah, there are going to be some low lows, but those low lows aren't going to be devastating like they are with Jameis sometimes. Always been a Gardner Minshew fan, Uncle Rico 2.0, whatever you want to call him. I think this is a steal. I think Indy, they're in a race. They know that, look, if they win, they're going to probably not scoreboard watch, but they're going to assume that Houston wins. So they're going to be like, look, we have to get 7-5. And if they don't win this game, and even if Houston does lose to Denver, Tennessee's now only one game back with the tiebreak. I assume. I don't know the full season series, but that's something they also have to keep in mind. I think Indy goes out, they get the job done. I think Shane Steichen's a really good coach. He's done a lot with not a lot. So I agree. I like the money line. Minus 1 point. I don't know why you even, mess with that. So give me money line. I got to take the under here as well. These are just two teams that haven't proven to me that they can go out and cover or at least put up points consistently, live in the 20s. Haven't really seen that from these teams. Although I will say, as I say that out loud, Indianapolis, I believe, is the only team to only have one game this season without scoring 20. Everything else, they have scored 20. So something to keep in mind there. The only time they didn't, it was that debacle in Germany, the 10-6 game over the Patriots. But moving on to our final game of the week, we'll be previewing. It's going to be the Detroit Lions. They are looking to hit somebody after a rough Thanksgiving. They've had an extra few days to stew on it. They are going to be 4-point favorites as they head to New Orleans. The Lions are, of course, 8-3. Saints 5-6. This will be in Nolans. And the over-under is 46. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Lions 4-point favorites on the road against the Saints.
Well, here's my thought. It's no doubt that Philadelphia is number one in the NFC at 10-1, and it should be followed by the 9-2 Detroit Lions. However, when you give up 20 in the first quarter and you can't get your feet back under you, you get what you get. And so now it's, they look just like the Cowboys do right now. With that said, they're playing good football. On the other side of this one, you've got the NFC South, perhaps one of the most head-scratching, disappointing conferences in football this year. New Orleans, I believe they are 1-3 in division play. They should really be challenging Atlanta, but Atlanta, I believe, is undefeated in division play and sitting at number 1. And I don't see New Orleans playing any better this week. Detroit's going to come out. You already said it. They're coming out to make things right again and to make sure everybody realizes it was a fluke last week against the Packers. Detroit's going to put points on the board, 4 points on the road under a dome where it's nice and dry and cozy. Guess what? They're going to cover the 4 points, no problem. And I like the over in this one because I think they're going to run up 35 points, no problem. They'll let Derek Carr throw a couple touchdowns and everybody goes home.
Yeah, I agree. I think the over is this one here. A Lions offense that has struggled of late, but has the capabilities. And the Lions defense will also help out the over here. I think that's going to be the biggest kind of shortfall of the Lions. That's something it's great that they're on the level, at 8-3 and in that conversation. But the defense that's kind of where the arguments end for them. But against the Saints, I think they do enough. And in terms of the spread, I think that, the Lions do cover as well. I will just buy a half a point just to get to 3.5, just in case it kind of turns in, one of those 27-23s where we're all of a sudden at 4 for the deciding number. So just to cover myself there, but I do like the over here. I like Dan Campbell, and I think honestly, this might be a positive for them, at least in terms of the division and things like that. Obviously, they caught a break on Monday night with Minnesota losing. But if Detroit wins this game, the division's pretty much over. I mean, even if they lose this game, it's probably already over. But this is their chance where they can go, okay, let's go out, let's get the win, and then we worry about seeding. Because that's kind of the way it goes. Win their division, check. And then if there's any games left, figure out where seeding works. Because if you can give some of these guys a day off, a week off, week 18, you take full advantage of that. And a win right here would go a long way towards securing that. Because I do expect them to be locked into the 3 seed when it is all said and done. Although maybe 2 seed now that I think about it. One other thing, and this has nothing to do with this game, but I did mean to bring it up all the way back in the front. We talked about how crazy this season has been. A perfect microcosm of how crazy the season has been was this past Sunday. We had, from when Sunday morning started to when football ended on Sunday night, we had 4 different number 1 seeds in the AFC. It started with Miami, and then it went to Jacksonville, and then it went to Kansas City, and then Baltimore ended up winning, and then they took it back. But I think that just shows that we literally had 4 separate teams hold the number 1 seed in a day. Now, obviously, if that's how the end of the season goes that week, that would be poetic. But that was one thing that jumped out to me that was like, wow, that's crazy. And then when you brought up earlier how crazy the year has been, I meant to bring that up, but it slipped my mind and it just popped back into mind. But yeah, back to Detroit. I do think they get the job done, and we do see points being scored. I mean, Detroit might do a lot of the heavy lifting on that points by themselves. But in terms of the game picks, that's all we have for you. Raider Jim, any final thoughts?
Oh, final thoughts. I got a couple. First and foremost, here in Southern California, when the CIF high school football championships, state championships are getting underway. Congratulations to my St. Augustine Saints and Coach Luffy and St. Augustine Saints, who went out, took care of business last Friday, got their division CIF title for San Diego, and will be playing again tomorrow. They've got a home game. Go Saints, bring it home. And speaking of not pro football, but high school football, and then maybe one thing on NCAA football. Now, I have spoke out before about how I don't appreciate the way Deion Sanders has handled the whole thing over there in Colorado. And now he has gone out after this disappointing season, did not make it to a bowl game, and makes a press conference statement that what we need is more money because I hate to say it to this I'm paraphrasing. I hate to say it, but some of these kids cost a lot. Now, how he gets away with saying that, how his AD lets him get away with saying that, how the NCAA lets him get away with saying that. He had made a statement earlier in the season uh, remarking that his son, who plays quarterback, basically would be going into the draft by the time it came for his senior year. So what's to say to your program that had they made it to a bowl game, he wouldn't just pull his kid from the game because he doesn't want to ruin his stock going into the draft? There's a lot of stuff about the way that program's being run. He's losing commitments. He's losing coaches, and I think that it's not going to get much better over there in Colorado. If they're waiting for him to come in and make them the next Ohio State, the next Michigan, the next return to glory, it's really too bad. And if I had a son who was a player and D1 prospect, that's the last place I'd have him look.
Yeah, it's all fun and games when you're playing Colorado and who was it? TCU, I think, early on, and everyone was hopping on board. And then life hits you. Life comes at you fast sometimes, huh, Dion?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. We'll see how long that kind of lasts. Unfortunately, Colorado is kind of stuck with them for a little while. But my final thoughts, I'll also keep it kind of on the college side of things. I did bring it up, I believe, on the pod, how great this past weekend was for rivalry week while we're looking ahead to championship week. And this will be the final year of a 14 playoff. The one thing to keep an eye on now, we haven't talked about it on the show, but I think maybe you and me have exchanged a text about it here or there. But the Iowa Hawkeyes and the spreads that they have been throwing, or at least the over-unders in their games, have been unbelievable. They're 10-2 in their unders this year with an average of like 34 points. 34 points in college are team totals a lot of the times. So this weekend, and the number has, well, at least the line has moved on it. 6.5 for Iowa, total team over under 6.5 points. And the first half, 0.5. That's the number they give you on total points for Iowa. 0.5. The over is minus 130. The under is even money. I'm thinking, unbelievable. But Iowa, best of luck to you. I want chaos when it comes to college football. So I hope they somehow do beat Michigan and everything just blows up, the most chaos possible. But my final thought is I am a man of integrity, and it's time for me to apologize and admit that, maybe I was being, a little unfair to a certain quarterback who plays for a New York football team. And no, it's not you, Zach Wilson. Tommy DeVito. Look, I made a lot of jokes, made a lot of Danny DeVito jokes. I made all kinds of, and look, as an Italian, I'm allowed to, all right. I understand you're the passing paisan and I love it. You know what? I'm here for it. Everything that you've been throwing out, I am a fan of what he does. The other part of it too, I was watching the game this weekend, and something popped into my mind and it kind of scared me. Raider Jim, have you ever seen a movie? It's called A Bronx Tale. It was made in
Yes, I have. Yes.
Look at that movie and then look at Tommy DeVito.
That's it.
That's it. I mean, it's like, wait, that was made in 1993. You're trying to do the math. It's the same kid. Everything is amazing, but look, I was harsh on him, and a lot of people were. Not a lot of people are apologizing to him. Not to say he listens, but I'm a man of integrity. I made a lot of unflattering remarks and maybe laughed at him. He looks like he is a legitimate backup quarterback, and I don't mean that as an a-hole comment. You can make a very good living being a backup quarterback. And I think we've seen some backup quarterbacks that will not make a living being a backup quarterback going forward. I think Tommy DeVito is. So with that being said,
I'm thinking
a
if
fan.
you ran him on Ancestry.com, you'd find out that him and Testaverde are related.
I mean, you would have to, right? Like that whole of the Jersey
Just
side of it.
saying.
He is the quintessential Sopranos. Like that, I feel like his life is the Sopranos. But yeah, what a story there. Don't get too good though, because you are still in my division, and I don't want to start hating you. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the NFL Weekly. It happens. Of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Take care.
Have a great weekend.